I'd like to call this November 10th, 2022 Board of Education board meeting to order. Mr. Anagnastu, would you please take the roll?
Mrs. Bissell?
Here.
Ms. Cobain?
Here.
Mr. Miko?
Here.
Mrs. Hausum?
Here.
Ms. Stochek?
Here.
We are all present. Would you please stand and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Next on our agenda is our district goals. Our district goals remain the same. We measure every decision we make by academic achievement and growth, financial prudence, and community engagement. And normally I would have a really good shout out, but we are having technical difficulties, so we're going to have to wait for the shout out till the next meeting. Next is OSBA student achievement. Mrs. Cobain and Ms. Stavcek.
So this month for student achievement, we are featuring the preschool. And can we have Ms. Surso, Sophia Williams, and Kathy King come up? Ms. Surso, do you want to explain why you picked everybody?
Sure.
Since you're here?
Sure.
We've got it in writing, but I think it makes sense to come from Ms. Surso.
I'm just so excited not to be presenting preschool slides tonight, so that's exciting. So the student that I chose to nominate is Sophia Williams. She has been in our preschool for 1.5 years, I think 2 years now, and 3. Oh my gosh, it has been 3 years. And I chose Sophia for this award because she is kind, she's friendly, she's a teacher helper, and she's very resilient. She's been through a lot for a student her age, and she just continues to show us all the characteristics of a great mini Mustang. So let's all give Sophia a round of applause.
Thank you.
Is it easy to be a good friend, and is it easy to be so empathetic and caring and wonderful and kind to your classmates?
Yeah.
Yeah. What's your favorite part of school?
Everything.
Everything.
Yeah.
We came in and we visited you guys, and you guys were doing music, and you guys were coloring the one day. They sang a very nice goodbye song to us when we left. It was very long, and we loved it. Yes. I think they sing that song to everybody when they leave. No, just you. Oh, just us. What do you want to be when you grow up? Anything at all?
So you can think about that and tell us next time, okay?
Sound good? Awesome. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you, Sophie. Thank you.
And welcome everybody to this meeting. And I love everything that you give me. He a good join and to join us to give me a good award. Thank you.
Thank you.
Much.
Very much.
You're very welcome. Here, you can stand right here so everybody can get a picture of you, okay? Because you are the star. Okay, next we have a teacher.
Sophia, you have a whole fan club here.
She does.
Did you see that? You have a whole fan club.
She has a whole row.
You're going to stay up here because you're going to shake hands
Do you want
with
to stay
everybody.
right here?
Okay.
All right, the next person that I chose for the award from the preschool is Kathy King. Kathy has been a teacher at the preschool for 18 years. And as you know, in my recent presentation to the board, the classrooms had to change at the preschool. So Kathy was unfortunately one of the classrooms that was affected by that change and was no longer allowed to have the type of classroom that she was used to having. So she is teaching in our classroom that doesn't have any peers, that has 6 students with pretty intensive disabilities that are nonverbal, sometimes have behavioral issues, and it's just been quite a shift for Kathy in the classroom. So I chose her for this award because she's always going above and beyond, going to new trainings, taking everything in stride, having team meetings, and just really been a team player and celebrating that change in her classroom. So congratulations, Kathy.
No, I do want to say thank you, and I feel very privileged to have been here for 18 years working with these students. The preschool is the best. I know we have other people here from the preschool, but it is definitely a team effort from the custodians to the classroom assistants to the directors. So we get a lot of support, and I appreciate that. But again, I just thank you, and I feel very privileged to be in this position. Thanks.
Not so cool.
Both times we've gone to the preschool in the past month, Kathy has had the biggest smile on her face and has just been so happy. And I keep saying, I'm like, I want to come to school here. Can I come to school here? Remember I asked your class if I could join your class? And you guys said I couldn't. Right? But everyone there, I think it shows just because there's even staff here supporting tonight, just what a family that is. And it's a beautiful, wonderful school. And thank you for everything.
So thank you. Thank you both. Thank you. Guys are great. Thank you.
Come shake hands with everybody. Shake hands with them? You want to go around? Shake hands with them? Go around. Here, we'll go with Mrs. King.
See? You shake my hand. Good job, Sophia. Go shake Dr. Revis' hand.
We can ask what your favorite part of school is. I know. What do you want to be when you grow up? We're very proud of you, Sophia. Good job.
Nice job, Sophia. Nice job.
Next on our agenda is public comment. I do have one slip.
Before
Michael
Mr. Micko, we do have one more recognition.
We do?
We do.
Well, I'm glad someone's correcting me. Oh, that's right. We do have a...
You were distracted by the pearls on our young scholar over there.
Where is Sophia's mom? I just want to thank you for sharing your daughter with us. It is an honor and a privilege for us to educate her, and thank you for sharing her with us. It's a wonderful thing.
Thank you. I saw when we asked her what she wanted to be, she looked right at Cameron and she was eyeing for that seat right there. She was like, so watch out, she's coming.
That's right. Right, you could be my replacement here in 20-some years. We do have one more recognition. So, it's wonderful in our community. We have a vibrant Eagle Scout program, and to see how they give back to our community. So I'm going to ask Mr. Wingler, principal of the high school, to come up to share this next recognition.
First off, happy Thanksgiving to everybody in Strongsville. I'm going to call him up now while I talk just very briefly about what he's done. Bradley Whitaker, come on up. This is really exciting for me because always in that it's a small world that we're all connected. Mrs. Whitaker, Bradley's mom, was my daughter Olivia's teacher for 2 consecutive years over at Drake. So it makes this that much more exciting for me. So Bradley received his Eagle Scout through Boy Scout Troop 701. He is going to tell you a little bit more about his project, but before he does that, I want to tell you a little bit more about what he had to do to get here. I was not an Eagle Scout. So when I started looking into what it means to be an Eagle Scout, it's a big deal. Bradley has been in Scouts for 8 years, not counting Cub Scouts. And I looked up, well, what does that even mean? in order to be an Eagle Scout, on top of this big culminating project he's going to talk to you about, he had to receive at least 21 merit badges. And those badges require things like citizenship in the community. It requires, I looked at the list and I was like shocked. They were cooking, personal finance, emergency preparedness, environmental science or sustainability. There's a lot of them. Family life. It's a very much an organization grounded in the values that I think many of us in this room have. So Bradley chose to do something with one of our parks, and I want to let him kind of describe the project, why he did it, and where, and all that good stuff. So come on up.
So for my project, I planted 30 trees at a park, Strongsville Park number 3, over on the corner of Prospect and Drake. And so along with planting those 30 trees, we also mulched them, placed a support stake, and also placed fencing to protect from deers. And so the main reason we did this was the creek that runs along that park often floods when it rains, and planting trees along that helps keep that creek from eroding. And the other reason was we lost a lot of trees from an invasive species as well as a fungus. So those two reasons were the culminating factors to why the project occurred. And so overall the project took 59 hours to complete.
So I'm going to present this certificate of recognition for Bradley Whitaker for representing Strongsville High School and his family in an outstanding fashion and manner. Congratulations.
Yeah, how about Megan will take it.
So I would like to congratulate Bradley on the Eagle Scout Award, and I see that his mom and dad are in the audience, and I want to thank them for sharing Bradley with us. I'm fond of saying that our students are model Mustangs, and the things that they do, other students get to see, and other students get to say, I'm going to set my mind to doing those things also. So we had two great examples on different ends of the spectrum, so thank you very much for sharing your children with us. Now, next on our agenda is public comment. I do have one slip. Michael Wolf. Michael, if you could give us your name and address, and you have approximately 3 minutes.
Yes, thank you. My name is Michael Wolf. My address is 425 Walnut Drive. I was here last week and I had a softball question last time rather. This time it's a little bit more of a hardball question, I believe. So after participating as a community member in the board facilities committee meeting, this one was at Kinsner, it's come to my attention that there's a similar, as I expressed at Moraski, with 28 kids in a classroom, whereas the Ohio Administrative Code, it's Rule 3301, 3505, if anybody's interested, that the ratio should be a 1 to 25 student ratio. So in addition to this, my concerns with the music programs in particular at Moraski, similar things that were observed at Kinsner, that the orchestra meets in the foyer, is what I had heard, as well as the music on a cart in the homeroom, similar to Moraski. So at this time, I believe that the frequency of the Board Facilities Development Committee must be increased to prioritize addressing the need for adequate facilities for our elementary school students. And I ask any and all members of the board to comment on such.
Thanks, Michael. I can respond. The board, the Facilities Development Committee meeting, we're speeding up, going as you were there, and I appreciate you coming to the meeting. That was awesome.
Sure.
And that's my chance to ask other interested members of the community to come to our Facilities Development Committee. But we realize we have to speed things up, so we're going to visit 2 grade schools at a time. And we're going to continue to work with it. As far as the specific questions, we have your contact info. I'm going to let Dr. Ryba respond to you as far as all the details. I don't know them by heart. Give us a chance to follow up with you, and we'll get you an answer.
Do you have the updated dates? Because I have the next one was Moraski on December the 15th. So with the frequency being twice a month, it'll still be that day, but 2?
It'll be that day, but we're going to get in our cars and visit 2 schools.
Okay, yeah, it was kind of lengthy, even just visiting the one adequately. You don't think that 2, you don't think separating it, having 2 on 2 separate nights in December might be a feasible?
What I would suggest is come to the meeting and bring that suggestion up at the next meeting.
Okay.
Okay?
Yes. Any other members have comment? No.
So one of the things that,
Just curious.
just so that you and the public,
Sure.
public comment is more for us to listen than a dialogue.
Right,
You're
you don't
welcome
have to respond.
You're
I
welcome.
understand.
You're welcome to contact any of us, et cetera, but it is important for the entire board that we do and that's why we have the Facilities Development Committee, to do that work and to set the time aside to do the work.
Okay. Yes, I understand that you don't have to respond. I was just requesting. Thank you.
Thank you, and happy Thanksgiving.
You as well. Thank you.
Next on our agenda, we're going to go back, because I was able to get my phone to work. So we're going to go back to our shout out for the day, and I wanted to give a shout out for our financial algebra classes at Strongsville High School. This is a new class that we started recently. It's taught by Ms. Deutsch and Mrs. Kubatis, and as part of that financial algebra class, they're welcoming guest speakers to share with students real-life applications of the concepts they're learning. So, for example, the students have already heard from an insurance representative to discuss the details of car insurance. We had a salesman from our partners at Serpentini Chevrolet, and they talked about the car purchasing process. And after the Thanksgiving break, someone from Erie Bank will be discussing insurance. And we wanted to give a shout out to all of our business partners that are coming into the class to help with financial algebra. And it is an example of our 3 goals: academic achievement and growth, financial prudence, and community engagement. So we want to thank our teachers and the students for taking part in the class and being open to a different way of learning. Next on our agenda is our treasurer's report. Mr. Anagnastu.
We actually have the approval minutes. Sorry, I would just toss that. It was
Technical difficulties are having more fun with me than one person should be allowed. Next on our agenda is approval of minutes. Let's see. Motion to approve the Board of Education meeting minutes from October 13th and October 27th. All district and audio recordings are a permanent part of the minutes. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
I'm going to ask for a clarification on the second. Second?
Second.
Motion by Mrs. Hausum, second by Mrs. Cobain. Any discussion? Hearing none, would you please take the roll?
Mrs. Hausum,
Yes.
Mrs. Cobain,
Yes.
Mr. Miko,
Yes,
Ms. Stochek,
Yes.
Mrs. Bissell.
Yes.
and the motion carries. I think maybe next on our agenda is the treasurer's report.
Yes, it is. Thank you, Mr. Miko.
You're up, George.
So the first item I have is the 5-year forecast. The 5-year forecast was presented at the November work session. The 5-year forecast is it's a semi-annual item that we must approve once in November and again in May. It was presented last meeting. So if there's any questions on the forecast? No? The financial report for the month ending October 31st is attached. I don't have a presentation for it, as typically the month-end report kind of goes over how we're comparing to the forecast, since the forecast was presented at the last meeting. As of now, it's as presented in the forecast. Next on the list, I have student activity program purpose and goals revision for 300 activities account for wrestling. We adopted the activities account last meeting, or at a previous meeting, and within purpose and goals there was a reference to soccer, as sometimes these the sports are templates of each other, and there was a error, and it should have been updated to wrestling when that was adopted, so it's just readopting it to change the one sentence that referenced soccer. The next item, item 4, is a revision to a budget purpose and goals for the middle school athletic department student activities account, increasing the budget from $26,845 to $33,445, and the increase is due to the additional activity that we'll have for intramural bowling to account for the revenue coming in to pay for the fees for the bowling alley. Item 5 is amended appropriations. The items that are increasing the appropriation measure is Fund 19 for the E-rate reimbursement account, 0199926, which is to bring up the budget to cash. Fund 35 is to increase the termination benefits fund for the transfer via the general fund due to change in estimates. And lastly is Fund 300 for the middle school athletic department for the associated revenues and expenditures related to the intramurals bowling. Item 6, medical prescription insurance and premium rates for leadership and administration. When the board approved the leadership handbook and the administrative handbook for the next 3-year cycle, there were plan design changes, an increase in employee copays, out-of-pocket max that are going to go into effect January 1st. So with that increase, it will lower the premium rate for those amounts, as the dollars received from the out-of-pocket, the plan design will offset the premiums. And then lastly is the One America life insurance renewal. It's a 2-year renewal. The renewal rate is staying the same for the next 2 years as it was for the past 2 years, with a 0% increase. So that concludes my report, if there's no further questions.
Any questions for George? Thank you, George. Next on our agenda is Superintendent's Report. Dr. Ryba.
Thank you, Mr. Micko. I do have one item for your consideration. It is to purchase a replacement drumline equipment for Strongsville High School Marching Band from Royalton Music Center at a cost of $32,150, as listed in the exhibit. As George has updated you, the current drumline that we have is 20 years old. It was used when we bought it. It's had a good lifespan, and it's time to replace it. So this purchase will help make sure that our percussion section has the appropriate tools to continue to do the great work they're doing in band.
We're looking forward to seeing the new drum line next year.
Yeah. With that, I'll have Steve Bruckner, our operations manager, come up to the podium with a few items that he has on the agenda for this evening. Steve?
Good evening, everyone. There's 3 items for your consideration tonight. The first one is the lease agreement between Strongsville City School District Board of Education and Pro Soccer Club. The board hereby leases to the Pro Soccer Club, or known as PSC, and the PSC leases from the board the property formerly known as Albion Middle School, located at 11109 Webster Road, Strongsville, Ohio. The lease is for the term and rental amounts set forth in the exhibit, and is subject to the provisions contained in the lease. The lease includes all of the green space and fields and parking lots, in other words, the premises. That's attached.
And this one does require a vote.
You are correct. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
Motion by Mrs. Hausum, second by Ms. Stavcek. Any discussion? We're going to get the lawns mowed?
Yes.
I know the public will be pleased to hear that, and I also think we'll be pleased that we have a great group that's going to make use of it, and I don't have to tell anyone in Strongsville that soccer is important to our community, so we're excited to have that opportunity to let them practice there. Any other questions or discussion for Steve? Please take the roll.
Mrs. Hausum,
Yes.
Ms. Stochek,
Yes.
Mrs. Bissell,
Yes.
Mrs. Cobain,
Yes.
and Mr. Miko.
Yes, and the motion carries.
The next item for your consideration is the purchase of one Ford F-350 truck, and be resolved upon the recommendation of the superintendent that the Board of Education approves the purchase of one 2023 Ford F-350 truck from Nick Abraham Elyria Ford at the total quoted price of $59,585, funding to be from the Permanent Improvement Fund.
That also needs a motion. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
Motion by Mrs. Hausum, second by Ms. Stavcek. Any discussion? Why do we need another truck, Steve?
Well, this is part of the overall plan. This completes this round of purchasing that was really started whenever I took the job over, I think 5 years now. We had an aging fleet. Some of the floorboards were actually already the way rusted through. With this purchase, we now have a fully renovated fleet that for the foreseeable future, all we'll need to do is maintain, and we have a great group of mechanics to do preventive maintenance on there. Some of it is Mother Nature and how much salt we need to put down, but on average, we've been keeping these trucks. This one is a 2011, so we've had it for 11 years, and for a work truck, going through all of the seasons, daily, we'll say work, towing, hauling, doing everything it needs to do, that's a pretty good run. So this one being added to the fleet, our oldest truck at that point will be a 2013. So we'll be good for a few years, and we'll exercise options on purchasing in the future. But for now, I'll leave it to our great maintenance crew to do the preventive maintenance that's needed, and I won't be coming back next year for a new truck from you. That's
like
exactly the answer that you wanted to hear.
Any other discussion? I did want to say, I think this is a theme for today's agenda, whether it's the drums, whether it's the agreement with the soccer group, whether it's the truck, that we're in a position, and we need to thank the voter and the taxpayer, that we're in a position that we can have the tools we need to do our job well. And comparing that to not that many years ago when it was, how do we stretch things? How do we split something in half? How do we patch something? How do we Band-Aid something? But it's good to know that we're in that position, and we can use good judgment to make wise purchases. And I like to hear that our maintenance team is going to make sure that all of our equipment lasts as long as reasonable. Hearing nothing else, please take the roll.
Mrs. Hausum,
Yes.
Ms. Stochek,
Yes.
Mrs. Bissell,
Yes.
Ms. Cobain,
Yes.
Mr. Miko.
Yes, and the motion carries.
The third item in this section is gifts given to the district. Be resolved upon the recommendation of the superintendent that the following gifts be approved. The Strongsville football backers donated $34,320 to cover the pay to participate and trainer fees for all middle school and high school football players for the 2022 fall season. Successful fundraising efforts by the Strongsville football community allowed for this generous donation. Refunds were issued by the district to those football players who have already paid their pay to participate and trainer fees. Brett and Isabella Packle donated $100 to the special needs classroom at Soror Elementary School. Strongsville Athletic Boosters donated a golf simulator valued at $4,300 to the Strongsville High School boys and girls golf teams. That is all.
Thank you to all our helpers. Those are wonderful things. And any other questions for Steve?
Where exactly is that golf simulator now?
I know.
Have a good Thanksgiving.
Test it out. Test it out. We do have a handful of items under curriculum. The first is an overnight trip for our high school girls varsity basketball team. Be it resolved upon my recommendation that we grant permission to the girls varsity basketball team to travel to Cincinnati, Ohio, and participate in the Cincinnati Princeton basketball tournament, December 28th through 29th. Transportation is via school bus, and expenses are from the girls basketball booster account. Number two is we do have a recommendation for a student-teacher placement for field experience to be placed at Whitney Elementary School with Ginger Schmerschel from January through May, and this is a student at Franklin University. Under number three, we do have a recommendation that the Board of Education enters into an agreement with McKeon Education Group in the amount of $10,145.55 for a part-time Title I instructor to service pupils at Incarnate Word Academy under Title I federal funding administered to approve non-public schools by local school districts. Number 4 and 5, we have two overseas trips planned for next summer. The board remembers you previously approved a trip for the German students. This first one is a trip for our French students, so be it resolved upon my recommendation that permission be granted for the Strongsville High School French teachers, Alana Bendetta and Laura Gaba, to travel with French students to France and Switzerland. The trip is going to take place June 12th to 21st in 2024. Expenses are paid by participating students, and if necessary, the trip may be postponed or the destination changed depending on world events at the time. Under number 5, we have a trip to Peru. Again, this is for Strongsville High School Spanish teacher Janet Smith to travel to Peru with Spanish students. This will take place June 6th through 17th, 2024, and expenses are paid in a similar fashion, and postponement and destination may be changed as we talked about in the last item. So that concludes the curriculum report, unless there's any questions. Under student services, we have one recommendation that the Board of Education enters into an inter-district service contract with the Educational Service Center of Northeast Ohio for this school year, paid by available ESC subsidy funds and general fund if necessary. This is for 2 interpreters that we utilize in contract through the ESC, and there's also a psychologist intern, and that's why the note is there that will be paid by the ESC via a state grant awarded on behalf of the district to help support. I believe this is because we have a shortage of school psychologists, and so we're using interns to help support during some of these shortfalls. So that's that item under student services. And next, I'll turn it over to our Assistant Superintendent, Jenny Pelko, with the Human Resource Report for the month. Jenny?
Thank you, Dr. Ryba. I have the following items for your consideration this evening under Human Resources. Under J1, we have appointments for non-certificated staff members. Under J2, appointments for certificated substitutes. J3, we have appointments for non-certificated substitutes. Under J4, we have appointments for certificated athletic supplemental contracts. Under J5, we have an appointment for a certificated athletic supplemental contract, and this does require a vote.
Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
Motion by Mrs. Hausum, second by Mrs. Stavcek. Any discussion? Hearing none, please take the roll.
Mrs. Hausum,
No.
Ms. Stochek,
Yes.
Mrs. Bissell,
Yes.
Mrs. Cobain,
Yes.
and Mr. Miko.
No. And the motion carries.
Under E6, appointments for non-certificated athletic supplemental contracts. Under E7, we have changes in hours for some of our non-certificated staff. Under E8, changes in status for non-certificated staff. Under J9, we have medical leaves for certificated staff. And following that, medical leaves for non-certificated staff. We have an unpaid leave for certificated staff member. Under J12, unpaid leaves for non-certificated staff. Under J13, volunteers for chaperones. Under J14, we have a volunteer coach. And then the following two items, we have two corrections to the August 25th agenda. The first one is regard to our appointments for certificated district substitutes. We had to revise the fund to reflect our ESSER funds. And under J16, it is the same thing with appointments for certificated district substitutes, again, going to the ESSER funds from the agenda on September 22nd. And that concludes my report.
Finally, ask Dave Binkley, our Director of Instructional Technology, to come up and share his item for the month. Dave?
Good evening. Be it resolved upon the recommendation of the superintendent that a 5-year agreement between Southeast Security and the Strongsville City Schools be approved to upgrade the district phone system to a WebEx calling phone system. The cost to the cost to be a one-time charge for hardware replacement and installation of $200,922 and a monthly recurring charge for WebEx subscription with Cisco PSTN of $8,940.37. The reference quotes are WebEx subscription and hardware replacement and installation are listed in the exhibit.
Why, how, when, etc.?
The reason why is while we're technically currently grandfathered in, we are not under compliance of two laws, Kerry's Law and Ray Baum's Act, which accounts for how we communicate with 911, how 911 communicates with us, and how we identify to 911 when we call them. Basically, like what location it is, what room number, and if they need to, are they able to call back that exact phone. So right now we meet some of those requirements, but not all of them, and our system kind of needs to move forward to a cloud-based system. At least we're moving to a cloud-based system to make sure that that is all in compliance. The goal is, with the approval, get things moving along. So the back-end stuff that we have to do with setting up the tree logic and the recording messages and things like that can happen during the school year, and over the summer we'll make the flip physically with Southeast Securities coming in and helping actually physically change out all the phones throughout the district.
And I would say it's not exact, but I do remember I was the principal of Moraski when we started putting that last phone system in, so it's been with us for about 15-ish years, so it's had a good lifespan.
Yeah, and if it wasn't for the great people on my staff of rehabilitating the phones time and time again, we wouldn't be in the situation where we're at, where we're just now starting to run out of phones, and we have to consider purchasing new phones for a 15-year-old system. So this makes better sense for us long term.
How does it compare price-wise?
Price-wise, there is a little bit of an increase, but there is a good increase of new features that we currently don't have, like availability of voicemail for staff through their emails, instead of having to go to a phone and log in, call their extension, and do that whole process. And it will also combine some of our services that we're currently doing right now, some of our, I guess, I would call them physical landlines, can be absorbed within this environment, this cloud environment. So it will help us take away some things that currently are paid by Steve's department in business services.
Any other questions?
And there is a redundancy, so in case we do lose internet or electricity, we have the ability to make sure that our 911 calls can go out during that time.
Can we do that now?
Yeah. Our current have that. We have a red phone in all the buildings that allows that. So we have hardline phones right now. This would kind of replace those, but provide us alternative routes in case that does happen.
Thanks, Dave.
With that concludes my report.
Next on our agenda, if I'm reading it properly, is report on Polaris Career Center. Mrs. Bissell.
Yes, Polaris does not hold a meeting in November, so our next meeting will be on December the 13th. But November is a month full of getting prepared for registration for next year. So all of our sophomore students here have had the opportunity to learn about Polaris and what it has to offer. And they also did hold their registration night. But if you're still interested, by all means, check out the website and take a look, and you can find out information about registration there. And I think that concludes my report.
Next is report on legislation. We had an election since our last meeting, and we wanted to congratulate Representative Tom Patton, who was elected and will continue to represent our school district in the State House. So we look forward to continue working with him, and we'll see what next year brings us. We now have our board liaison reports. If we can start with City Council. City Council met yesterday, and the mayor thanked everyone for a great start to the holiday season with the tree lighting ceremony in the Commons area, and it was lovely. It was extremely cold, but I think everybody had a good time, and it was a great way to see friends and family throughout the city. And Santa Claus came, and I had a chance to check with him, and nobody was on the naughty list as of the event. So we'll see how that continues. That is the City Council report. Next is PTA.
PTA. They are going over and reviewing grant requests and approving those this month. They will be picking their Founders Day nominees. Let's see. And their luncheon, the Founders Day, will be celebrated in February. They don't have a date yet, but I'm sure they'll let everyone know. And the holiday luncheon is December 1st. And I think the email for the RSVP went out a couple of days ago. So everyone who is involved in that will be getting those, so keep your eyes open. And their last meeting, they actually did have a representative talk about our buildings, actually, which fits into what the gentleman was saying, and how they're getting old, and we know that, and we need to, get on this and start fixing some of this stuff. So that was all from the PTA. Thank you.
I think I missed Strongsville Education Foundation.
Yes, they did meet on November 10th. They had a meeting and they discussed grants. They approved a grant for a giving garden for the Sarar PTA. They also discussed some upcoming fundraising opportunities. In January and February, they will be selling Super Bowl squares. In March, they will be doing their NCAA brackets. And mark your calendars for May 6th for their annual Jockeys and Juleps fundraiser. And that concludes my report.
Thank you. And we already did PTA. So now board committee reports, Finance Committee.
Yes, our next meeting is December 6th at 6 p.m. in this building. And later in the agenda, we are going to vote to approve 2 new members to our committee. We're excited for Brian and Sarah to come on board with us, both members of the community with children in our district. They were at our last meeting, and they had a lot to bring to the table. So we're looking forward to working with them. That concludes my report.
And next is
Policy Committee.
More than one. Policy Committee.
Policy Committee met last week where we discussed a handful of new policies. The large part, they are just updates to be compliant with the law, but our fellow board members received their packets today, so we'll be reviewing them, and then they'll be on the agenda here in the next couple of meetings. That concludes my report.
Facilities Committee, do you want to? Facilities Committee met last week, Thursday. We met at Kinsner Elementary. We had a very good meeting, reviewed the Kinsner building, and then talked about, the committee talked about how time is of the essence, so they made the decision to double up on some of the visits to the elementary schools. The committee had committed earlier to visiting all the elementary schools so they could report back at a work session on the status or the state of those elementary schools, but they realized they want to be able to have that at a work session of the board sooner than later. So next month is going to be Muraski and Sarar. So it's a lot to get done, but they realize it's important that they're thorough and they're also complete. So that is that meeting, and the next meeting is December 15th. It'll be at Muraski Elementary at 6:30 PM. It'll start there. Okay, next is Business Advisory Council.
Our next meeting is here on Friday, December 2nd at 7:30 a.m., and that concludes my report.
Is it December 2nd or December 12th?
December
Second.
2nd. I
Second.
think,
Okay. December 2nd it is.
December
yeah.
2nd or 12th?
It's the second.
It's the second.
Oh, correct. the
There's a
agenda.
typo there.
We're going to throw the 1 out of the 12,
Yep.
and then we'll have December 2nd.
I'll correct it right now. Is the time correct?
7:30 a.m. Yeah.
And it's in this room,
In this room.
unlike the policy meeting from last week, which was not in this room. But I came in and unpacked all my stuff, and then looked around and realized I didn't know anybody. I think your brother was there.
Oh.
Next on our agenda is our consent calendar. Adoption of the consent calendar at this point in the agenda means that all items appearing in this agenda denoted as type action consent, which items constitute the consent calendar, are adopted in one single motion unless requested otherwise. Do I have any otherwise? Hearing none, do I have a motion?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
Motion by Mrs. Hausum, second by Ms. Stavcek. Any discussion? George, would you take the roll?
Mrs. Hausum?
Yes.
Ms. Stochek?
Yes.
Mrs. Bissell?
Yes.
Ms. Cobain?
Yes.
Mr. Miko?
Yes, and the motion carries. Superintendent's timely information.
Thank you, Mr. Bicko. Mr. Anagnostou is going to put the slide on the board for me, but just a reminder, we are getting to that time of year. It's the really first official concert, so we've got plenty of winter concerts coming up. So as you can see, at the high school, starting on November 30th, we have the choir, followed by the orchestra. The day after, and the following week, we have the band. And then middle school will be performing as well. As you can see, the dates listed there for our band and choir, and some combined orchestra, and then our middle school orchestra concluding on the 13th. And you could, so those are obviously open to everybody, open to parents. We've got plenty of room in the auditoriums at those buildings. We're also listing the winter music concerts for our elementary schools, but I would check with your school because these are during the school day, space is limited, so check to verify how many or who's able to attend in person. But just a reminder that all of our concerts can be watched live or on demand on SCS TV. I think there's a shortcut right on our main webpage now, but if you just remember strongnet.org/SCS-TV, you could get there as well. So check out some of our talented students in the coming months as they perform for our parents and our community. And with that, that concludes my timely information.
Next on our agenda is a appointment of new members to the Board Finance Committee. Be it resolved that the Strongsville Schools Board of Education approves the addition of 2 new members, Ms. Sarah Weeks and Mr. Brian Renkus, to the Board Finance Committee. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
Motion by Mrs. Hausum, second by Ms. Stavcek. Any discussion? George, would you give us a background or any information about the 2 members?
Yeah, so we, over the summer, requested, put a survey out requesting new members to join the Finance Committee. We had 1 member come off, but we were also looking to expand the committee. We had about 8 people that were interested. We invited all 8 interested members to attend the Finance Committee. Mr. Renkus and Ms. Weeks accepted the invitation and came to the meeting. They offered good input and wanted to be a continuing part of the committee. Mr. Renkus is a CFO, CPA for a nonprofit nursing homes, and then Mrs. Weeks is also a CFO, finance director for a nonprofit in Cleveland. Both obviously both are residents of the city and have, Mr. Enkes has 3 children in the school district, in the Kisner neighborhood, and one at the middle school. And I believe Mrs. Weeks has 2 high school aged children.
Thank you. I think it's good that they have the right background to be helpful, and it's nice that they have children and are members of the community. Any other questions or comments? Please take the roll.
Mrs. Hausum?
Yes.
Ms. Stochek?
Yes.
Mrs. Bissell?
Yes.
Ms. Cobain?
Yes.
Mr. Miko?
Yes, and the motion carries.
So before you move on, I wanted to confirm, I was updating the day for the facilities committee. It was December 16th, 6:30 at Muraski Elementary?
Correct.
I updated the agenda to reflect that.
15th, George.
15th.
What did I say, 16th?
I heard the 15th, but maybe you said the 16th.
I have 15th, is that what it is?
Yeah, you put it out. You're correct.
Okay.
Yeah.
Bear with me. I think it's going to catch up.
Mr. Miko, as you're catching up, we did put under Board of Education Other, we just kept that miscellaneous category, so when we scroll forward, so that would be kind of your others.
Speaking of Board of Education Other, does anybody have any others?
I have another other. On November 11th, Sharon and I had the honor of attending the first annual Whitney Elementary USO show that was put on by Mrs. Gonzi, or as we got to know her, drill instructor Gonzi. There were 65 plus veterans in attendance. Last year there were only 13, but this year there were over 65, and it was beautiful. I cried the entire time from start to finish, I think. I did the entire time. And each grade was a different company of recruit. The kindergartners sang the Grand Old Flag, and each class wrote songs about their teachers that they sang. And it seems that the teachers were not anticipating these songs to be written about them, and they all had personal touches to them. I took 3 things away from this in the form of jokes that you're free to use at home if you'd like to. What is a soldier's least favorite month?
What?
March. Why didn't the soldier tell anyone their rank in the military?
Why?
They were a private. And what do you call an army of babies?
What?
Infantry. So aside from jokes, the kids also did a skit of who's on first. There was a lot of fun. There was a lot of laughter. There was a lot of tears, happy tears. Sean Jennings spoke, and he wrote a poem for a friend, Don Jakeway from Johnstown, Ohio. And Mrs. Hawks, the principal, her dad was even in attendance there. So it was a very special moment for everybody. There were challenge coins that were given to all veterans, and the back had all the military branches, including the Space Force. And at the very end, all the students made a tunnel and did a clap out for all the veterans, which was very powerful and beautiful and special to see.
And we heard the Space Force song. I don't know that I've ever heard the Space Force song.
I had never heard it.
No, we did.
Yeah.
So,
But in every,
it was amazing. They put a lot of time and effort into that, and I really appreciated it.
and every time they sang a different song for a different branch of the military, the veterans stood up and sang. And there was actually the 4th and 5th grade choir was there, which is about 70 members, and they meet every Tuesday morning. And they had beautiful voices, and it was wonderful. So thank you for inviting us.
Do we know if it was recorded?
Yes, it was.
Yes, it was recorded.
So it sounds like something we can watch on SCS TV.
Yes.
Yeah. Well worth it to get a chance.
Any others?
Just kind of piggyback off of that, my husband and I were able to attend the holiday play at the high school on Friday night. I'm assuming you may have been there on Saturday night. I kind of thought so. It was a great program. Shout out to Mr. Jenkins and the theater kids. They just did a phenomenal job. Winter Wonderland, a Hallmark parody. So 6 happy couples, I guess, ended up with the love of their life at the end of the night. So they did a great job, and we really enjoyed it. It was a great kickoff to the holiday season, and I can't wait to see what they're going to do in the spring.
I know I saw Michelle on Saturday. I know we attended, and it was just lovely. It was a lot of fun. Any others? I'll just wish the community a happy Thanksgiving. In Strongsville, we have many things to be thankful for. Did want to give a shout out to the girls soccer team. That's something we can be thankful for their performance this year. they won as far as I'm concerned. That's all I'll say on that. So, but happy Thanksgiving to everyone, and enjoy the holiday with your family and your friends, and we'll see you in December. We do have need for executive session on the topics of,
Meeting notification.
yeah, I'll get good with this one eventually. Meeting notification. A regular Board of Education meeting will be held Thursday, December 8th, 7 p.m. in the meeting room of the admin building right here. And now we do have need for executive session on the topics of
To consider the employment and compensation of a public employee and to prepare for negotiations with public employees concerning their compensation or other terms and conditions of their employment.
Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
Motion by Mrs. Hausum, second by Ms. Stavcek. Any discussion? Hearing none, please take the roll.
Mrs. Hausum,
Yes.
Ms. Stochek,
Yes.
Mrs. Bissell,
Yes.
Ms. Cobain,
Yes.
Mr. Miko.
Yes, the motion carries. We will enter into executive session at 8:05. Thank you for your attention. Happy Thanksgiving.